I want you to notice that there is a homework assignment posted, and also all the homeworks graded last few days. If you have any question about your homework assignments, for example, not graded or not as high points that as you expected, whatever you have the issue, please let me know. Sometimes some students raise the issue after I submit it. Then it is very hard to change. Changing grade is very hard. It is okay if I give you I grade, I means incomplete, then automatic, there's another room that we can update, we can change the grade at least once, right? But once I submitted your grade, then well, it's not easy. So point here is that if you have any issue, anything that you want to raise, please let me know early. This is the time that you need to fix any discrepancies that you have so far. Okay. So I graded all. If you have anything that brings to my attention, please let me know. Homework 2, new assignment has is posted just minutes ago. Please take a look at. Of course, some of this we have to learn, right? Cron tab. There's three things. To-do list number 1 is simple. Create a directory. Directory name is bin, bin. So you can create that directory. It's not hard at all. So create a directory and change the directory to that directory, and then create a script file. It's called, I want you to call it lscap. ls, so simply ls minus l, which lists all the files and directory within that target directory space, working directory, right? So list all the files in your home directory and save it in a file. File name is ls-log. ls.log. Eventually, I want you to submit that ls.log files. And then first time you do, you can screen capture to submit to see how it works. Okay, submit it. Screen capture of your script file. And then third step is to put it in the cron tab. So that script can do automatically, continually. If you put it in a cron tab, can do. We'll practice that a little bit today, okay? So that is a homework assignments. Instead, we do not have class next week, Monday after your Thanksgiving. I want you to work on this, okay? You have to study a little bit of a cron tab and a little bit of script file creation. Both of them will be practiced today, but a little bit, because I don't want to give you full shot and then copy it and submit it. It doesn't help you at all. All right, that is the thing, and what we will do today. we didn't do this completely last time. The user creation. Okay, adding users. If you are a Linux administrator, one of the major primary duties of Linux administrator is to give the privilege to users. One of the biggest privileges that you can give to user is the user account. How can you create a user account? You already did. As you install Ubuntu, then it asks you to enter your login name and password, so automatically you are there. But there may be a lot more users in your system that you need to manage. How can you create users? So that, for example, password file can contain the password information of the user that you want to register. The command for that is add user. This is the command. This is syntax. User add followed by some options. They're all, whatever they have the square bracket, that is the option. Optional. It's not option, optionals. You don't need to options. You don't need to group information. You do not need to home. You do not need to shell. Simply username. That is fine. But if you do not give that user any shell, then user cannot log in. Log in means user can gain shell privileges, where that user can issue the Linux commands. So right now, all of you have the shell logins. Therefore, you log in and do some shell command executions, right? Minus the option. That is also needed if you want to save the file within your own directory. Then you need to have -d and then home directory. When you create a home directory, that should be fully qualified the path expression. Fully qualified path expression means you have to specify it from the top. /group. This is also optional. You do not need to. If you do not want to put anything involved in any group or single user, single group, that is fine too. But efficient management of users requires the grouping of users. So this is also very, very useful. So -g define users initial group, -d user home directory, -s shell. Actually, before you issue the shell to a specific user, that shell needs to be available. Ubuntu has a bash shell. So if you see here, bash /bin/bash, this bash shell is available in this directory. This is a shell This is that, the holder of that shell program. -d, that is home directory. I didn't put that here, -d, but that's okay. -g, this is a group. Before you make the group number, then you need to have that this group number needs to be defined before you use. How can you create a user group? There's another command that you need to do. You need to issue to create a group. It's called the group add. So group add -g group number 100111. There is a computer clubs group number. Okay. This is the example that I made 4 or 5 years ago when that system was properly working. Randall, do you have a question? Better too. Yeah. Otherwise, for system administration purpose, you do not know what it means, right? Is it identified by the number? System identified them as the identical group by number only, but the name is for human. Doesn't matter. Yeah, they don't care. Oh, when you create? No, only the number here. This is once this group is created, then this group should be used here. This is one time. Yeah. We'll practice that. All right. User can be deleted. If you use a user deal command, then user deal command -all, so delete home directory also. Then and -all followed by username. For example, user del -all zchen, then Dr. Chen's directory will be completely removed. If you do not have this -all, then his login is deleted, but everything that he created remains. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some graphical user interface ask you to do that way, right? Mm-hmm. We can also modify users. The command is user mod and option and username. Options are pretty much identical to those of the user add. Also -l to change user login name. Once, for example, Zchen is the login name for Dr. Chen, but he wants to change his login not Zchen but simply Chen, Chen. Then since he has all the data created and saved for long, he doesn't want to lose anything but change login ID only. Then we can do that user mod for modification and -l and his old name and new name. Another option -g to list additional groups to add user to. For example, some user wants to be in more than one group. I want to be in the group of faculty. I want to be in the group of administrator. I want to be in the group of computer club. So more than one group. In order to do that, then you need to have uppercase G. Remember that earlier here, there is a lowercase. If you change it to -G, then you can put multiple. -G 1.1004, 100.111, and whatever you want to do. Okay. As I said, when you create a user and put him or her in a specific group, if that group does not exist previously, then you need to create the group before you assign a user to that group. Of course, right? Should exist prior to assignment. So the command is group add, group deal for delete, group mod, so modification. As Randall raised, as we initially create a group, I misspelled the name of the group. Technically, there's no problem. But if you do not like the misspelled group title, so that you want to make it clear, then you can change it. Group mod option. So we'll practice that after finish up this module. Demands is as I said, demand is nothing but a service. If it is a service, then if it is a server service, then that service should be ready all the time. Then we need to put it in a demand mode, so it should work all the time, right? It could do start, stop, demand command. And also, all of you are already a super user. You have super user privileges. You are not the super user itself, but you have super user privileges because you are in the super user group. That is a pseudo words list. Pseudo words, but super user needs to be always familiar with all the Linux command and some risk and privileges of super user accounts. So when you create a user, it is not really recommended to add anyone in the pseudo words list. Anyone who is in the pseudo words list can have all the privileges of the super user, therefore can do anything as if the root users. So we have to, that is the super user privileges. All right. There's another command very useful that you can use is SU. SU stands for substitute or switch user. So you are the user under your login ID. But if you want to change to someone else, then you can do SU and someone else login ID. Of course, once you do SU someone else's login ID, then it asks you to enter his or her password. If you do not know their password, you cannot, right? But if you have the root privileges, not the root privileges, if you have root ID, then you can sue to anyone else. There's privileges. It doesn't mean that super user, the root login, can know someone else's password. It's totally different, right? Without knowing someone else's password, super user, ROT, root can log in. There's a super user privileges. Sudo came here. Sudo words. Sudo words list is in the etc directory. etc/sudo words. So you can add someone else in this sudo words. If you want to change it, then sudo vi sudo words, and then you can add someone there. Okay, this is the end of this module. So what we want to do now, I want you to start Ubuntu so that we all together create a user. Ready? Okay, let's create. Let's first take a look at etc group. Okay, so by typing more /etc and group, list of groups. So we have a root and admin, ADM. Group ID is number 4, and there you might have your name also, syslog, and then UID. UID is UID there, your login ID in that admin. These are the group. And then there is another sudo, sudo, and your name is there. Sudo ID 27, sudo group ID is 27, but you are there also. And there are so many places where you are. And then toward the end of this file, there's your name, and then group ID is 1000. And there is no group title. You can name it, but it's not there, right? Create a new group. It's not just editing and entering your ID here. It's not the right way. Even if you do, you add here, your system does not understand. Exactly the same way that, although I ask you to do that, for you to practice some other issue, the adding users is not just editing a password file, right? A lot more than that. editing in a password file is just checking the password only. Shell user usually need a home directory, so that you have to create a home directory. Not only that, if you see the home directory, there are a lot of hidden files available. For example, I am here now, right? Whatever you do have here, your name, colon, and tilde, and $sign, then that is your home directory. If you type there -a, ls -a, -a means I want to list all the files within that directory, including hidden files. Then you can see all the files. Which ones are hidden? Any file starting with a dot, and they are all hidden files. So this ls -a is not the same as just simply ls. If I type ls, then these are the list in my directory. When I do type ls -a, then I have a lot more than that. Do you see the difference? Why I do have more list with the option -a? Because -a lists all the hidden files. The point here is that when you create a user, you cannot create all these dot files manually. Only it is possible when you properly issue user add command. Therefore, it can add some. Okay. Likewise, a group. Mr. Buick, if I forgot, I need to. Some of the homework assignments are not really readable of yours. Please check and. I see. Oh, did you submit separately to attachment? You didn't, right? I was not able to open yours at all. Nothing. I wanted to take a look yours. Okay. Okay. Anyway, that is a side issue. Okay. So, in order to create a user, I want you to create one additional user account in addition to yourself. Okay. So, please think of user account. You can think of your friends, girlfriend, boyfriend's name, first initial and last name, usually. Okay. Before we create a user, we need to create a group. How can you create a group? The command is group add. If you do not know option, what do you need to do? You need to do man group add. Then you can see the options. -F for force, -H help, -K for key, password, all, doesn't have -G. Oh, here. Yeah, it has a G, -G, or double -GID, followed by ID. This ID should be a number, numerical number. That's what we want to use. Okay. So what we need to do is group add -G, and then you can say 101010. 6 numbers, fine. And then you can say Linux class 101010 Linux class. If you hit enter, then what happened? What would happen? No privileges, right? So what you need to do? Permission is not granted, so you have to do sudo, and then your after this, if there is no error, then you can find out if to see if it is listed in that group file. So tail /etc/group. Tail is similar to more or less. Tail, head, all open the file and list the content accordingly. In this case, you can display few lines from the bottom. Maybe 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 10 lines. The last item of that group file is the Linux class, and then group ID is 1010. Okay. Okay, now we are ready to add a new user. So user add -s for shell. If you want to give him a shell, meaning that allow him to issue any Linux commands, then you need to give him a shell. There are many different versions of a shell, but Ubuntu by default it has the shell in the directory bin. The shell name is bash, so bash shell. There's a default shell shell environment. There are other shells available. For example, C shell. That's another typical shell environment. Another option that we should use is G for the group. So G -G, and then group is the group that we just created, Linux class group. So 101010. There's a group ID. It is okay because we already created. -M, this is, for example, I think, yeah, some others. And so -U, this is a user ID. -M, that's for make. So we better have to do -M. And -U, so user ID, so that we can put user ID also. User ID, I would say 101001. Little different. And then -C is the real name. -C and real name is, you can think of your friends. So I can say Adam Smith. This is the option that I did. -C, that real name. And then at the end of that command is this user add. At the end of that user add command, you need to put the login ID for that person. Adam Smith, usually we can take first initial and last name. Would this work? Would Do I miss some? If I do not have sudo words privileges, then I might have some error, right? Let's see if it's still permission denied. So what I need to do is I need to do sudo. It worked, right? No error. Can you check? Yes, you can check. Tail etc password. Aha! I have here A Smith. His ID is 101001 and group ID is 101010 and his name is Adam Smith. His home directory is home A Smith and his shell is bin bash. Got it? What I did, the command that I did is tail /etc/passwd. Then it lists the last 10 lines of that file. When I add user, then new user will be appended. So I do not need to read from the head of the file, but the tail, right? Your midterm was not really bad as I graded it. Some of you got over 100, which means I add 10 points to your actual earning. Some got almost to 100, a little bit over 100 also. So your actual grade is the grade that you can see from your Blackboard minus 10. That is the actual. Minus 10 is your actual. But your final grade is the one that you can see from your Blackboard. Average is after I compensate. Average is 81 or something like that, which is not bad. 71 is not bad also. I thought yours is no good, but still good. That makes me happy. It didn't make me unhappy. Right, there's no class next week. Instead, there's a homework assignments posted. So you have to recap some of the stuff that we learned today and also learned yesterday. I mean, the last week. You're not Rob. Rob texted me. Oh, you told him. Oh, you are the one. Oh, you're lucky because you are here on campus. So was he your competitor? Competitor? No, just rival. Rival. Yeah. Fushimori. Okay. So you got it. So what you another way that you can another way that you can check the account is change the directory one level up. How can you change it? How can you move the directory of the father? Father directory cd . Thank you, Randall. There, if you do ls, then you can see yourself and your friends. Right? Do you have that? Right now the problem is A Smith does not have a password. Didn't we put a password? No, we didn't, right? He has no password right now. So what should we do? We need to give him password, right? So password first set for him. And then later he can change his password. So what is recommended to issue the password? Password, right? Of course, in this case, we need to do sudo passwd followed by his login, A Smith. Enter new Unix password. At this time, this guy doesn't ask my password because sudo is still effective. But it is not all the case, right? If you come back to change his password little later, then and therefore if you do sudo, then sudo usually asks you to enter your password first, right? But in this case, still effective, so that I can give him password. What should I give him password? If I forgot, it's no good. So what I want to do is I can give him the same as his login name. So I put his login name and password. Who am I right now? If we put ID, then right now I am Jae-yoon, right? Can I, because I have sudo privilege, can I switch? Not necessarily sudo. Yeah, anyone can do. How can you switch? How can I switch user from Jae-yoon to A Smith? The command is su. Su is switch user. Su stands for switch user or substitute. Su and then A Smith. Then this guy asks the password to A Smith. If you enter his password, then you can get in. And there, if you type ID, then whose ID? It's Smith ID. What is ID? Did you do password? Did you change the password? It probably not changed. Therefore, it didn't ask you. Initially, no password associated with that ID. Go back to yourself and sudo password and his name and new password and confirmation. Just like we did where? Here. Did you have these messages? Password updated successfully? You did? But didn't ask you to enter? Oh, it's a Kelly. You are the root right now. Are you right now? Are you or root? But didn't ask you to enter his password? Root does not ask you. That is a root privileges. Supposed to be. Yeah, it's not. It's not. Yeah. All right. Anyone has any issue, any problem? So far, so good, right? What I ask you to do. Okay, Linux shell scripting. Shell script is nothing but a batch file. So shell script contains a sequence of Linux commands where there may be some other language involved. For example, if you want to make a decision using conditional statements, if this, then do this command, others, else, something else. Or loop, if you want to iterate something, then that is not typical Linux command itself. That statement's borrowed from typical programming language, which is not really new at all, and also simple to understand. What we will do here is not such decision making or iteration, but simple Linux command. That's what we want to do as a practice, okay? If you want to make bash script should, the script file should start with this statement. Simply declaration, some descriptor. Pound sign, exclamation mark, /bin/bash. Okay. It's a command, but it's good for example, if you run a Python program, then there is a Python descriptor. If you create some other file specifications, better to specify on top. Okay, it's not executed. Yeah, kind of. Randall, you raised the question. BI, yeah. Gedit. There's so many others available. But VI, as I said, VI, if you know VI, then you can, as far as there is a micro kernel available, still you can create file. For example, your Android phone or iPhone, where there is a microkernel available, so that if you want to do some program, then VI is the editor. There's no other editors together with that microkernel. Okay, so if you want to see some of the commands, you can go to this the URL and take a look at. We're not going to do that. Instead, we will do this. This is also requested for your homework assignments. I want you to create a new directory called bin under your home directory. So mkdir is the command to create the directory. Directory name is bin, and you can change that to that directory by using the command cd. mkdir, that is also the command. And then we use the vi editor. So vi and my script. Press I. It's not L. I for insert, and you edit this simple. Can anyone explain what these statements will do? What is the date? Is a command? Is a command or a comment? That's a command. That's a Linux command. It gives you the timestamps. What is this greater than, double greater than sign? I still remember some of you use that so often on your midterm exam. Actually, I didn't ask at all about, I mean, for you to use a greater than sign, but to create some file, it may be okay. But so that I give you some partial points. What is that? Single greater than sign is a created file. That is, instead of displaying the outcome on the terminal, we want to save it in a file. So greater than sign followed by file name, then the outcome of the command will be saved in that file. If you have a double greater than sign, then it append continually. Append, therefore, initially the file is not created. It assumes file exists. Okay, so we create that. And then make it doable. How can we? We need to change the mode. X4, executable, right? So we have to do it. So let's practice. Okay. Again, startup. Ubuntu. Right now I am A. Smith, not J. Yoon. A. Smith. A. Smith is not the root user, right? So what I need to do is I need to go back. How can I go back? What happens is here right now, I logged in as J. Yoon, and I switched to A. Smith. So right now I am in this directory. Directory is the home directory of A. Smith. So I am now at this point A. Smith. How can I go back to J. Yoon? Exit. Command is exit. If you type exit, then I can go back. And type ID, then where am I? I'm now J. Yoon, right? Previously A. Smith, now I am J. Yoon. If you type CD, then I can go back to my home directory. CD, enter, then go back to my own home directory. There we can create a bin file. So you can make mkdir bin. I did that already. So enter, then you can see bin directory, bin. And there try ls-l and see the sticky bit. What is it? all executable. Make sure they're all executable. What I'm going to do is that I want to make it executable. Whoever run it, it should be executed. Then you need to do this, right? chmod plus x or chmod 755. But anyway, if yours is not this, then what should you do? You need to change it. You need to do chmod dot and bin. What it does is that from your father's point of view, your directory should be executable. What do you mean by directory executable? File executable, that we understand. How directory can be executable? What does that mean? It means change directory. If there is no X, then directory cannot be changed. It's not reading. Change directory is not reading. Change directory is not writing. There's something else that is executable. So what you need to do is change mode and plus X, then bin directory plus X, then executable privileges to all the users. All the users means myself, group where I am, and others. All three components. Oh, right now I'm not within the bin. So if I do change bin so that I am now in bin, then I can issue this, because I am inside the bin right now. I am inside the bin. So I want somebody to get into my directory. Then I need to open it from father's directory. If somebody wants to come into my directory, then that guy, there is only one path that guy can come in. What is the path? So from the father directory. So you need to open the gate from the father, which is ... You need to open from ... /bin. If you do that, then it works, right? Okay, here we need to create a script. Okay, so vi prn print prn date d prn d small d prn d. Okay, make it simple. vi prn d, enter. And then you need to insert, right? Minus I. Just simply press I, then it can be inserted. Pound sign, exclamation, bin, dash. And simply date. And then you can say echo yes. And press the escape button and shift ZZ Shift ZZ means save and exit, right? ZZ, save and exit. And then you can do ls. Then what is the file? File name? prnd, right? Can we run this prnd? Try prnd. It's not working. It's not recognized. Then what about ./prnd? So two different things, right? Two different error messages. If I do prnd, then error message says no command prnd found. Did you mean that command prnd from package blues-compact whatever is his best knowledge, and then prnd command not found. When I did here ./prnd, then what does that mean when I do / followed by the file name? Dot means what? Dot means father. Single dot means self. Right now, it's a current directory. In the current directory, I want to specify that specific file, prnd. By the way, prnd is available in the current directory. ./ dot is my directory. Therefore, if I specify directory, then I need to put /. If I say simply .prnd, then there may be some hidden files. All the hidden files start with a dot. That's not what I meant here. What I meant here is in my current directory, then you need to say ./ and then file name. In that way, you can specify the file in the current directory. Therefore, the error message is not the same as in general prnd. If I do prnd, then my Linux is struggling to find out where that prnd is available. Therefore, all kinds of error messages appear. When I specify with a specific location, which is a ./, then this guy does not need to search all the system, but within my system, it can find no permission. No permission means, in this case, this guy tried to execute it, but there is no execution permission. Permission in Linux operating systems is two issues. In general, in security, in cybersecurity, there's two issues. Usually, the access control, there's two issues. Typical access control is this. That happens to operating systems as well. Let's say we have subject and objects. So object takes some actions on the subject takes some actions on the objects, right? So we have some privilege issues, which means, does this subject has the right to do? That's a number one question. Another question is this object can take that action? If both are properly matched, then subject can take an action over that specific object. So there should be always two things matched, subject and objects. In this case, subject, which is me, and that is my file, that is my home directory. There's no way that I do not have privileges, right? So subject is okay in this case. What is the problem? Objects. Question to this object. Object is in this case PRND, right? What is the object issue? The issue is, can object be executed? Can object take the action from the subject? What the subject would like to do right now is to execute, right? But object does not have that. Object is not ready to take that action. Object is not executable. We need to make it executable. How can we make executable? Change mode, right? So ch mode 755 and then prnd and then ls. Look at this. At first, when I did ls, prnd, the color code prnd is white. Soon as I change it to 755 prnd, the color code is green. Green light. Green. Executable. Is executable. So when I do dot prnd, what happens? Boom. It gives me the date followed by echo. Dash, 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 dash. Yes. Dash, dash, dash. That's what we programmed, right? That's what we coded. Every time when I do this, it says date and yes. Only difference is the date. In this case, 16/24/23, 16/24/47, 16/24/49. When I do this one more time, then 16/25/02. Okay, and your homework assignment is this. I'm going to explain your homework assignments, and then I'll close this. And meanwhile, I'm going to help you. Okay. Huh? No. Oh, it's, everything here is yeah, the module. Yeah. Oh yeah, the homework assignments. Once you do similar to like this, then you need to register this command. What is the command? This prnd into that cron tab. What is the cron tab right now? I changed my cron tab, but that's okay. So more etc cron tab. If you see the cron tab, see here, I made this 24 star star star. So user is Jaeyoon. What I did is I want to change it because I want to change the CD and home slash Jaeyoon slash bin. That's a bin directory, right? I change this first. Double ampersand means it's not one command per line. I need to make a several commands within one line, then you need to do there's a delimiter, right? Double ampersand. What it does is that do execute this and then execute the following. And if you have another double ampersand, then another command, double ampersand, another command, and another command. If you have a sequence of commands, then you need to list them all in one line. That's what it does here. So we need to change the directory first, and then execute this. Remember that? Dot, slash, and this is another, right? This script executed every hour, the minute 24, and minute 25, and minute 17, whatever specified here. Okay, that's what we learned the last, two classes ago, right? So you can take a look. All right, that is what I asked you to do, the homework, and I'm going to close this. Okay. If you have a network infrastructure, so that add a new host to the infrastructure, and that host can access the internet. How can we do that, right? So basic steps to add a new machine to a local network or assign a unique IP address and host name. But we do not have, well, each one has some IP address already, local IP. And set up the new host to configure its network interface at the boot time. Set up a default route. So interface card and network card, routing data route, and point to a DNS name server. So DNS name service needs to be available. Why it is needed? Not all the cases, somebody, including you, wants to access some other machines by IP address itself. We usually use the nickname, right? How many of you know the IP address to www.mercy.edu? I don't know. I don't need to, right? So you need to have some services from DNS services. Name server, DNS name server can provide you, if you want to access, for example, www.cnn.com, that is the name that we can memorize. We don't need to memorize, right? We can get it all the time, but not the IP number itself. But networking needs IP number. Human does not need. Therefore, there is some interpreters, some service needed, right? So DNS can provide the name services. Okay, adding machine to the network, depending upon the systems. Where are we? We are in the third row. So ours is in etc. The directory etc, where there is a host name. Then you can see all the host name. list of host name in your subnet. In your Ubuntu, you have your own local host, and then your host name. Those who installed the Ubuntu, then host name of your Ubuntu host is Ubuntu, possibly, if you didn't change anything, right? Simply Ubuntu. And there is another IP address assigned to the host name. It's called the local host. Actually, two IPs assigned and defined if you see this host name. And there's a net interface information also stored in the directory of network. Similarly, other Linux operating systems have similar information in the similar directories, right? Red Hat and SUSE. Debian and Ubuntu is our family. So we're going to focus on this issue, right? Ubuntu in this class. So we will do this later. Networking layers. The layers of networking in TCP, well, actually OSI has 7 layers, right? OSI has 7 layers. International standard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 layers. Application, OSI has application. And physical layer, OSI has a physical layer. Data link layer. And there's a session layer and presentation layers somewhere here, right? Presentation layer, session layer, and then transport and network layer both together somewhere here. Right? I don't remember precisely, but somewhere there. So what's the only difference here is that session layer is not necessarily here. Why? Because session is usually dependent on the transport layers. There is a host ID and then port number and then specific user. There's a session, right? They all go together. So we will look at that. And there is a network protocols. For the port layer, transport layer, we have basically two protocols, TCP and UDP. Network layer, we have IP protocols. IP version 4 or version 5 that defines host address. Once you have that host address, then we have the port information between the port. For example, if you have two hosts here and there, say this is host 1 and this is host 2. And somewhere here is a port. Somewhere there is a network, which is IP. This guy wants to talk to the IP of the destination. So there is IP. So this guy wants to talk IP information with the other here IP. If this guy that request from a particular application through particular port, then it comes here. Therefore, from here IP it goes to particular port through this particular port to a particular application. So here we have app 1, there also app 1. This guy wants to talk to the app 1 in another host through the designated port number. So port number needs to be defined. There are two protocols for the port layer, TCP and UDP. So first of all, address. Transport layer uses the port number. Network layer uses the IP address, as we looked at. Right, transport layer talking about port. Network layer it talk about IP address. So in this IP address, is pointing to a specific machine itself. Port is talking about the specific port number within a machine, within a host. The link layer uses the MAC address of the receiving adapter, because Ethernet or even wireless, Wi-Fi or cell signals needs to look at the MAC address. IP and MAC addresses belong to the interface. So look at the interface, it has that information. Each network interface has a fixed MAC address and is assigned to an IP address. Old computers usually has one interface, but now one computer, one host might have multiple interfaces available, right? We know that. Even multiple wireless interfaces and multiple Ethernet interfaces. So if you look at, if you search interfaces, wireless interface card is named usually WLAN, which means wireless LAN. And Ethernet interface is named ETH. WLAN or ETH followed by numbers as number 0, number 1, number 2. So we'll look at that. Domain and host name. Usually there is a top level domain like edu, .com, gov, UK, etc. And then next to the last part with the LTD is the domain name, for example, drexel.edu, pace.edu, mercy.edu. And finally, we'll have www.webmail.google.com, for example. So when you have two systems and connect them, then when they talk each other, then usually one host serve to another, and another host receives some services from that host, right? In that scenario, we call that a client and server based networking. So most protocols use the client-server model. A client process asks a server process for information, and server process usually provides it. You can practice that, right, in simple programming. In networking programming, in network course, or even Java course, you can set up server and client communications very, very easily. Okay. So a lot of applications developed. Key internet apps, for example, DNS, ALP, some address resolution protocols, dynamic host communication protocols, NAT, network address translators. So looking at those, so let's first look at DNS. DNS is domain name service. What it does is that it converts, for example, some name into the IP address. Okay. So in the networking, usually there is a command called bind. In most languages, bind server is a name services. Command ns lookup finds DNS information for domain name. So we can take a look also. ALP is an address resolution protocol that translates MAC address to IP address. DHCP, dynamic host configuration protocol, automatically assign IP address to the computer within a network. We're going to work on this also in Linux operating systems. NAT, network address translations, allows the network to use local IP address. Why NAT is needed is because the static IP address is always limited. So not each host can be assigned the static address, but all the subdomain can subscribe a few static address, and wherever it comes into that static IP address, then that IP address needs to be translated to a specific IP which is available only local within that subdomain, and which is controlled and managed by that subdomain network equipment. So translation is needed. So as a bundle, all comes into my subdomain, and then to specific address, specific host services can be managed by locally. To do that, NAT is used. Host files is available in the etc and host file, and NIS and DNS. Some others also needed. Renumbering issues, assigning in new IP addresses, using host name in the configuration files and making the host to IP address translation can be done through DNS. So let's take a look the host information first. Okay. So if you start your Ubuntu, then you can see that information. Where is it? It is in the etc directory. So ls, then you can see something about host and host names. Okay. So type host names. Host name. Then host name is Ubuntu. Type host. Then you can see two IPs, 127.0.0.1 and 127.0.1.1. That's a local host. The host name, the IP for this host name is 127.0.1.1. This is the IP of this machine. Because this machine is Ubuntu that we saw here. What is the host name? That's Ubuntu. Local host is used only for loopback. If I want to do locally, not communicate with the other externally, then this is the loopback IP, 127.0.0.1. Anything starting with 127 that is a loopback, that is possible IP address for loopback. So what it does is that usually we can specify that 127.0.0.0/8. This is loopback host address, loopback address, which means we might have any address within 127.0.0.0 to 127.255.255.255. Any number in between can be a loopback address, like here. So this is a loopback address. This is a host. Hostname commands assigns a hostname to a machine. It typically runs at the boot time from one of the startup script, which obtain the name to be assigned from a configuration file. So hostname is in the configuration file. Where is it? Hostname, right? /etc/hostname. Interface, the configuration can be found in etc network interfaces. So we can take a look also for a minute. So if you go to network, right now the directory is etc network, and type ls, then there is interfaces. All others are still directory. If down, if up, interfaces.d, and pre-up, pre-down, pre-up, post-down. Some of the scripts and configuration files stored in that directory. So if you see the interfaces, so more interfaces, then here, auto low iFace, interface low iNet loopback, that information is stored here. So interface file used by if up and if down. So what it means is here details information available in the interface manual. It contains network interface configuration information for if up and if down commands. So if some network card is up, then we need to do some. If down, then we shut down some other related informations. So within this file, the commands must be started with the beginning, #, and file consists of 0 or more iFace interface, and mapping, auto, allow, stanzas, some of the clause, some of the languages. So first, let us look at the loopback interface. It's called LO, right? When we want to talk to our own system across the network, the loopback interface prevents us from actually leaving the computer. Therefore, we say LO for the loopback. Loopback is automatically configured typically within these statements, stanzas in the interface files. So we looked at this, right? Auto LO. So automatically, when we say localhost, then it doesn't go out my host to look for the name localhost. We need to keep him inside, therefore loop back. It calls itself. LO means loopback interface. Auto means auto has it brought up automatically on boot. iFace defines the interface and creates its a setting for loopback. That's a loopback interface. So you may now understand sometimes at some practice, in some other programming, if you Here's an example. In your host, you have host languages available, right? Host language, which means in your host, in your laptop, you installed some of the languages, some of the languages. For example, Java, or C, GCC, or Python. Those are all the languages running on your host. We call that host language. Your host language wants to talk to some of the applications installed again on your host. You need to set up network between your host language and application program. Both are running on your laptop. So host name in such a case is localhost. You do not need to say Ubuntu because Ubuntu is a host name, not a loopback address. You better say localhost. Soon as you say localhost, then that request does not go beyond your localhost boundaries. It look itself. It's called the loopback. Therefore, your host language can successfully communicate with the application which is running on the same host as your host language. How does it work? It works that way because we have interface configuration. Interface configuration that, as we look at here, this is interface configuration, right? As we looked at, that interface file has these two lines. Now, INET. INET is internet, right? If you're using IPv6, is INET 6, otherwise INET, which is the version 4, TCP/IP version 4 networks. INET. Ethernet interface. So, if you want to work if you want to let it go outside, then you need to, rather than loop back. For example, if you want to set up DHCP, then instead of loop back LO, you need to say ETH Ethernet. So ETH0, if there is an interface card already defined for ETH0. So automatically it goes through the Ethernet rather than loop back. Okay. See the difference? It's a loop back. And INET is loop back here. But here in this case is DHCP, if you want to set up DHCP. Ethernet interfaces has, if you have a multiple Ethernet interfaces, then it has ETH1, ETH0, 1, 2, 3, whatsoever. If you have a static IP address, then you could do iFace, ETH0, INET static, not dynamic. And then you need to specify address is 10.1.10, 1.1.10, net mask is this, and gateway 10.1.1, right? This is different from that. Okay, that is the interface configuration. So currently ours is this in our Ubuntu running on your VMware, for example. Gateway. It identifies the device you need to contact to the rest of the world. So gateway is, in other words, that is the first hop router. So what is the next router from your host? So first hop router needs to be specified. We call that gateway address. What it means is that the communication from your host is always go through that gateway. So it allows stanzas. For example, if up, then allows hot plug eth1 and eth2, eth0 and eth2. If up and allow equals hot plug Ethernet line 1 and Ethernet line 2, and so on and so forth. So stanza beginning with the word mapping are used to determine how a logical interface name is chosen for a physical interface. So the configurations is in this way. If you do mapping, then eth0 by saying eth0 and script, you can say, oh, my script is there. And interface eth0 home, which is here, right? That is a static, and an interface eth0 work, which is there, that is DHCP. If there's a static, then you need to specify the address and then mask. If it's a DHCP dynamic, you don't need to. So real network can be defined in your host, in your Linux operating systems. It should have that configuration. We'll look at that. And if up and if down. If up brings the network interface up. If down takes the network interface down. So depending upon that, you need to say if it is up, then Ethernet 0 is home, and so on and so forth. You have to specify that way, like the way here, right? If down and do something. If up and I want to communicate through Ethernet 0, ETH0, that specific interface. Wireless networking is similarly defined in that way. When you do DHCP, then you need to start up SSID, service set ID of your access points, and you need to communicate through that access points. So, for example, wireless ESSID, this is the extended version, EXSID, and home, then you need to communicate with the access points at home. Home is SSID. If you set up SSID home, when you set up access points, then that is that. Or if you want to do ad hoc communication, then you can do also. So once you set up interfaces, then etc has init.d directory where you can initialize all the infrastructure configuration, right? So at this point, we can go back to take a look that init.d again. So by starting up again, then init id, let's say cd, and then you can see init.d here, right? So cd init.d, and there is a lot of initialized daemon programs available. One of them is networking here. Others that you might be interested in is cron. Cron is another, right? This one, part of your cron is another directory underneath. And RC. So let's take a look networking. Before you take a look at it, you need to see the file type. So networking, and if it is a script, it says a script, right? And also ask text executable. Therefore, you have a green color code. So you can take a look at it. So networks. Then you can see, for example, path is either sbin or bin. Run directory is run/network. There are if statements and case statements available here. What we want to look at, for example, this is a condition. If it is not, if it is I faces interface, then if up, then that interface or true, and this is the end of that if statements. And there's another case statements. Okay. So when you restart the interface, then all the steps here is started. It's a lot of work. although we do not know all details, but it is there. And also resolutions, DNS resolutions there, if you want. And then services also available, etc/services. There again ls, then let's take a look here, services. So let's see how many services are available here. File services, there's ASCII text, there's the C source. Therefore services, we don't have to do this. Let's say cat services. So what type of services that we have here? The port number, like Fido, like doggies, it keeps monitoring some. Port number assigned to that is 60,179. All this is sorted in the order of the port number, right? Services added for Debian distributions, 98, that is a Linux configuration service, 106, pop pasd service. It's a lot of services. If you are interested in, then you can take a look also. And another one is a covers service. And some other things that we may be familiar with here. There's all widget, for example, MS SQL services. If it is TCP, then 1434, UDP 1433. Some other services, log server, Cisco SCCP server. Yeah, MySQL 3306. A lot of those services available, right? So services list the network services available on your system. As we could see here, some of the TCP, UDP, through which you can have all different kinds of services available. And also protocols. We can find out some protocols. CAT protocols. Then those are the protocols that are available from your system. Local services here. IP and ICMP, TCP. The service number is 6. And UDP 17. IPv6 is 41. Service number. RSVP A lot of protocols available. Those are all available already built on your Linux operating systems. So let's take a look some others. Oh, okay. So all the files about networking, that's what we have looked at. And knowing that, then we can see networking programs. Those are all the commands that we look at. What we will do is, let's look at a few of those, and then we will stop for today. This is dmessage. It is some diagnostic tools of your systems. So dmessage gives you some. So if you do here dmesg, then some of the diagnostic messages can be found. dmesg, simply. It gives me a lot, right? So if you want to see in detail, then dmesg and pipe more, then you can see some here, some diagnosis. So, for example, kernel supported CPUs, some information of that, and BIOS information, hypervisors, initial memory mappings. So long list, okay? What it does is that it gives you the diagnosis of your system. Another highly used, frequently used, the command for networking is ifconfig. ifconfig. So I think you have to practice this. If you type ifconf, then you can see the configuration of your network. It starts from here. ETH0 is available. It's a link. Address is 192.168.152.131, which is a dynamic address for through the Ethernet. And LO, this is a loopback, local loopback, and the address is 127.0.0.1. Remember that? 127.0.0.1 is localhost. When you look at host, it gives me that, right? So we have two cards available, LO and ETH0. And you can see all such information here. You can specify ETH0, then you can see top one only. For example, if config ETH0, then it gives upper ones. If you do LO, then the lower one, lower portion of that. All right. So first command that you need to look at your network configuration is ifconfig. Usually you need to first look at ifconfig and understand available network interfaces. Right now,
my system has two interfaces available, ETH0 and LO. ETH0, through which the communication can go out from my host. LO, which is a loop back. If I want to say a local host, then it doesn't go out, but stay inside. If you have more network cards available, then you might have more. You might have more network cards, but it is not up. It is not started. So that we can see, we cannot see it here. So how can we start up network cards? So all such things will be discussed when? 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today. Next week, there is no class. So I wish you have a happy Thanksgiving. And then come back in 2 weeks. Okay? Don't forget the homework assignments. Due is Sunday night before you come back. Okay? Which one?
The first homework. I wasn't able to.